talk about loving without fear. Is it possible to love someone you fear? I don't know about you, but I would find it extremely difficult. I would find it extremely difficult to be able to open my heart to someone who I feared. And yet throughout the world, God is feared. People bow to God, they pray to Him, they worship Him. And in some religions, they're even afraid to utter His name. At the same time, you're told that God loves you and you must form a relationship with Him. Well, how do you do that? I'd love for someone to help me with that question, because I have no idea how that might be possible. How can you love someone you fear? If God is going to judge you, punish you, and forever send you to hell if you do anything wrong, then is there any possibility for love? This notion of God has made millions of people into atheists. Sociologist Phil Zuckerman broadly estimates that those who have an absence of belief in God range from around 500 to 750 million people worldwide. It's almost 1 billion people by now, I'm sure. So how did that happen? Why did people get so turned off? And if you were to ask these people why they refuse to believe in God, they generally refer to the religions that they grew up in and how God was portrayed. They can be as fanatical about their beliefs, atheists that is, can be as fanatical about their beliefs as religious people tend to be. Atheism has found its own God in science. They believe blindly because science has provided a tremendous understanding of the world and has performed great miracles. It has made our lives better in so many ways. But it has terrible flaws. If it were not for the Industrial Revolution, we would not have created weapons of mass destruction, nor would we have destroyed the planet and climate and environment in ways that could potentially lead to the extinction of life as we know it. So along with it being a blessing, it's also been a curse. The same thing comes with our own minds. We rely on them so heavily. We depend on our mind to tell us the truth, to interpret the world, to understand and give meaning to everything around us. And yet our minds can be horrible liars. And we don't even know the difference half the time between when that mind is telling us the truth and when it's completely bewildering us and telling us lies. Most of us never even challenge our mind. Most of us have no idea how to do that. But what if all the religions of the world had it wrong? What if atheists were wrong in making science their religion? What if God was nothing like they say He is? What if God was adorable, playful, delightful, charming, and the greatest friend and lover we could ever imagine? What if that indeed is what we've been looking for all our lives? Join us as we hear about Krishna's life, read about his philosophy in the Bhagavad Gita, and the way in which he lived and loved here in the Bhagavatam. I've done entire playlists on the Gita and on the Bhagavatam. You'll find them on my channel, Spiritual Wisdom Academy, which is on YouTube. The world needs a new model of God, and we don't need to invent anything. He was here around 7,000 years ago. He gave us the most incredible teachings and answered all our questions by showing us practically how to love God without fear. He showed us that loving God can be sweet and tender, intimate and joyful. Let's get started. If you've been following along, you would have been hearing about the pastimes of Krishna from when he was a baby all the way till the age of 5. Now, till he was 5, he was taking care of the calves along with all his friends. They were a dairy community in a small little village called Vrindavan in India. And when the boys turned 6, they were allowed to take care of the cows, the grown cows, and they would take them out for grazing in the pasture. Krishna and his brother Balaram made the land of Vrindavan most auspicious by imprinting upon it the marks of their lotus feet. Now, only when you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Being incarnate in this world, coming into this world with his own spiritual form, a non-material, non-physical form, not subject to birth, death, old age, or disease, although he does appear and he does disappear according to his own pastimes and his own free will. Then you begin to understand the significance of what is said here, that the land of Vrindavan, where he was made most auspicious by imprinting upon it the marks of his feet. So what's so special about the feet? Well, in the Vedic culture, someone who is worshipped, someone who is respected, someone who is looked up to like a parent, like a guru, or like God, their feet are what we bow to and offer respect to. So in this case, we're looking at Krishna and his feet being highly adored by those who love him. And to understand that, let me give you a little glimpse of what that looks like. It's a cow there lying down at his feet. And there's a picture here showing all the different symbols on his feet. There's a lotus there. There's various other symbols. We'll go into it another day. So as they went about the forest of Vrindavan, Krishna sounded his flute. Krishna has a flute. God is a musician. He loves to play and charm people with his beautiful music. And he was accompanied, as they went into the forest, with his brother Balaram and the Gopas. The Gopas were the cowherd boys and the cows. The Vrindavan forest was full of flowers and rich with nourishment for the animals. It resounded with charming sounds of bees, animals, and birds, and was enhanced by a lake whose clear water resembled the minds of great souls. This is such a wonderful example. There was a lake there which was filled with clear water, and the clear water resembled the minds of great souls. What would it be like for you to have a clear mind, an uncluttered mind, a mind in which you can literally see, like as you would in a lake, see to the bottom of the lake, where there was no cloudiness, no muddiness, no dirt? Imagine a mind like that. And that's what's possible through the practice of yoga. And the practice of yoga is at its highest level and its highest peak in the yoga of devotion or the yoga of love, which is called bhakti. Why is it quiet and peaceful like that? Because it is focused on the source of all creation, on Krishna, on God. And because he's so adorable and delightful, the mind becomes captured, captivated, and can think of nothing else. We all want that. We want to love someone like that. We want to feel that feeling of the greatest love of all. Well, it's right here, and it's being talked about. So it talks about here about a lake whose clear water resembled the minds of great souls, and by a breeze carrying the fragrance of 100-petaled lotuses. Seeing this, Krishna decided to enjoy the auspicious atmosphere. Now the entire environment, the entire place, Vrindavan, when Krishna was here 7,000 years ago, was very different than what it is today. And when he was here, he designed it to be exactly the way he would like. By his yoga maya, by his own powers and his shakti, he was able to create the ideal environment that he would enjoy. Today, Vrindavan has millions of people who come to it every year, and it can get crowded. It's a small little place. But this is when Krishna was here. Vrindavan is considered the most auspicious place on the planet because Krishna performed his pastimes, his Leela there. It is considered no different than the spiritual world, Goloka. Oh, when you say, well, what is that spiritual world you're talking about? So some refer to it as the light. Yes, that's called the Brahma Jyoti. Brahma Jyoti, the light. And in that light, there are various planets, spiritual planets, where beings reside in non-physical bodies that are not subject to birth or death or old age or disease. Now, the highest of those planets is known as Goloka, and that is the planet of Krishna. And you say, why? Well, why is that the highest? Why is he considered the highest? Because in that place, Krishna is as you will see him here. God is as you will see him in these texts. There is no formality. He considers himself to be one of us. He is adored because he is so beautiful and charming and playful and fun. He is not loved because he is a king or because he is great or because he sits on a throne or because he is going to punish us. He is loved for who he is, and that's how he likes it. That's how he wants to be loved. And it is here that you get a taste of what that is like. What is it like to love God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul? So Vrindavan is that very special place in which Krishna's Leela takes place, his pastimes take place. It is the setting, and it is therefore no different than Krishna himself. The place of God, the flute of God, his feet, every aspect of himself, everything he has, all his people are no different than himself. As one enters Vrindavan, you can feel its energy. Even now, it's like no other. The stately trees with their beautiful reddish buds and their heavy burden of fruits and flowers were bending down to touch Krishna's feet with the tips of their branches. Even till today, you'll see trees like that, bowing down. It's an unusual sight. You never see trees like this anywhere else. And when Krishna saw these trees bowing down like this, he smiled gently and addressed his elder brother, Balaram. The Supreme Godhead Krishna said, just see how these trees are bowing their heads at your lotus feet. Now he's telling his brother that because his brother Balaram is no different than himself. So he's saying, look at these trees, how they're bowing their heads at your lotus feet, which are worshipable even by the immortal demigods. The trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused their birth as trees. See, it's such an important statement here. They are offering their fruits and flowers to the divine, to God, the Supreme Godhead, to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused their birth as trees. Now, somehow we think we are superior to the trees, we are superior to the animals. We even go so far as to think we're so superior that we can kill them, we can eat them, that they're there for our pleasure, and that we can do with them as we wish. That is our vanity. That is our vanity in thinking that we are so great. We are all proud of our birth as humans. We are proud of our intellect, our beauty, our wealth, our power. But what we don't realize is that the pride that is coming from our ego wants us to believe in its own greatness. The ego wants to believe that it is great, that it is significant, that it means something, that its life has some significance. And the reality is, we are all insignificant. Think about it. There are trillions and trillions of solar systems and universes across the galaxies. In fact, there are billions of galaxies. And so we are just a tiny little particle on one planet that is circling around one star in this entire system. Our planet is 1/1,000,000th the size of this star which we call the sun. And this sun is a tiny little fragment in the universe. And we think we're so great. Within us are trillions of microbes and living entities. Who are we? Are we those microbes? Are we this mind? Are we this body? Who am I? And when you begin to examine this question, you begin to realize, I don't know, who am I? I think I was someone when I was a baby. Then I think I was someone when I was a teenager. Then I think I'm something when I'm an adult. And then when I go into middle age, I feel like I'm a totally different person. But I know inside I'm the same. Yet I look entirely different. You might have noticed that in your own life. Right? So this is the ego that wants to keep on believing that this is me, but the reality is me has been changing. My mind has been changing. My body has been changing. I have been changing through the years. And yet what has remained the same is me. The one that was behind this, the one who owns the body, the one who owns the mind. That me, that is what we call the soul. That has remained the same. And will remain the same. That entered this body when we were born and will leave the body when we die. So Krishna continues telling his brother Balaram, Balaram's his older brother. He says, these bees must all be great sages. They're hovering around you. They must be elevated devotees of yours, for they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are a blessing to the entire world. Though you have disguised yourself, they refuse to abandon you. You who are their worshipable Lord. The peacocks are dancing before you out of joy. These deer doe are pleasing you with affectionate glances, and the cuckoos are honoring you with Vedic prayers. All these residents of the forest are most fortunate, and their behavior toward you certainly befits great souls receiving another great soul at home. This earth has now become most fortunate because you have touched her grass and bushes with your feet, and her trees and creepers with your fingernails. You have graced her rivers, mountains, birds, and animals with your merciful glances. But above all, you have embraced the young cowherd women between your two arms, a favor hankered after by Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune herself. Now you see, notice how he's glorifying his brother Balaram. Imagine if someone was saying these words to you, that the earth, the rivers, the mountains have been blessed by your presence. Our ego would be so puffed up and would be so pleased to hear these words. But the reality is that would be an illusion. The reality is that our ego wants to hear such things, longs to hear such things. We want to be looked at as the greatest, as the best, as the supreme, and we want to enjoy everything. We want to have pleasures and we want to enjoy the world. But the world existed before we came and will exist after we leave it. It cannot belong to us. It was never ours in the first place. We've only been here for a short while. And we will continue to be here for a little while longer, and that's about it. Who does the world belong to? The atheists might say, oh, nature. Well, what is nature? Who created nature? How did nature happen to be here? Was it just an accident? Does anything happen by accident? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your questions about that. Thus expressing his satisfaction with the beautiful forest of Vrindavan and its inhabitants, Krishna enjoyed tending the cows and other animals with his friends on the banks of the river Yamuna. So we also see from here the simple life that Krishna was living. He was showing us that simple living is very important. Our science and our technology have made our lives very complex. But what is really important is to simplify our life. Instead of having tons of places to go and shopping to do and pleasures to enjoy and restaurants and other places where we can enjoy our senses, the idea is to simplify life. The idea is to withdraw our senses and to focus on the inner world. And by the inner world, I don't mean our thoughts and emotions. I mean the inner world that is behind even the thoughts and emotions. And that is the world of our soul. To be able to experience that, to experience its connection with the divine, with God, and to find the beauty that lies within us. There is so much so much that people would actually sit in deep meditation and trance, sometimes for days, weeks, months on end, absorbed in the ecstasy of what lies within. We are capable of incredible things, but we've become focused on developing outer things, developing machines, developing technologies. Nothing wrong in them per se, but we've forgotten the inner world. And I mean the inner world of the soul and the magic that it holds in our lives. We all long to be happy. We long to be peaceful. We long to have great pleasure. We long to have great love. But we're not able to find it in the world. And invariably we find ourselves disappointed. But the real thing that we're seeking is right here. It was always right here. It was just waiting for us to turn within and find that. There are ways in which to quiet your mind. There are ways to access that inner world. And those are the ways that are taught by the Vedas and by yoga and by bhakti and by all the different forms that are there of devotion that lead us there. So coming back to the pastimes of Krishna. Sometimes the honeybees in Vrindavan would become so mad with ecstasy that they would close their eyes and begin to sing. Krishna and Balaram would then imitate their singing, while their friends sang about their pastimes. Sometimes Krishna would imitate the chattering of a parrot, sometimes with a sweet voice the call of a cuckoo, and sometimes the cooing of swans. Sometimes he vigorously imitated the dancing of a peacock, making his cowherd friends laugh. Sometimes with a voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds, he would call out with great affection the name of the animals who had wandered far from the herd. Come back. Thus enchanting the cows and the cowherd boys. So this is a vision of God that you will not find anywhere else. God who is playful, who's imitating the peacocks, imitating the swans, imitating the parrots, being fun-loving. Is a 6-year-old boy we're talking, right? Imagine what would happen if you were to see him. Imagine how enchanted you would be to see this incredible being. Sometimes he would cry out in imitation of birds and peacocks, and sometimes he would run away, pretending to be afraid of lions and tigers. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head on the lap of a cowherd boy, Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. Sometimes as the cowherd boys danced, sang, moved about, and playfully fought with each other, Krishna and Balaram, standing nearby, hand in hand, would glorify their friends' activities and laugh. So I'll show you a little bit more of this. This is so enticing, so beautiful, that I think it's important to share more of what this looks like. There's Krishna with his brother Balaram. Krishna likes playing his flute there. His brother's carrying a plow. And you'll see always they're surrounded by animals, by deer, by peacocks, by swans, all mesmerized, all fascinated, all in awe of the beauty of Krishna and Balaram. And these are the trees of Vrindavan that I was talking about, bowing down to touch him as he would be walking by. And here they are playing. Imagine this vision of God. Most of us have had tremendous wounding in the name of God. Guilt, fear, a sense of shame, a sense of unworthiness, a sense of not being good enough. All of that because we need to somehow prove ourselves to be acceptable to God. Otherwise we'd get punished. But this is all so much nonsense. When we understand that God is no different than we are, just a better version, just a more perfect and more incredible version, a more adorable version. And when we can put aside our ego and when we can learn the ways of surrender, then we can begin to experience him as he is. Playful, joyous, fun-loving. You see him there again with the cows and with the swans. So I hope you're getting an idea here. And sometimes, they would lie down and help each other, massage each other's feet. They're being all playful, tickling Krishna with that plant. And here's Krishna massaging his brother's feet. And his brother massaging Krishna's feet. So you see, here his friends are massaging his feet. Again, I want to point out how much sweetness there is here. How much beauty there is. Sometimes Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down and playing and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. Some of the cowherd boys some of them were great souls, and they too would massage his feet, and others would expertly fan him. Some of the boys would sing enchanting songs, and their hearts would melt out of love for their beloved Krishna. So now one day, some of the boys, Sridham, Subal, Stota Krishna and others, lovingly said, "Krishna and Balaram, not far from here is the Talavan forest, which is filled with rows of palm trees. There are many incredible fruits out there that fall from the trees and are already lying on the ground, but the fruits are being guarded by a powerful evil demon called Dhenuka, who has taken the form of a donkey." So what they talk about is these highly evolved beings who were inimical to God, and they had developed mystical powers, and they could take any shape that they liked. Yogis were able to do this for the longest time. They could morph into various shapes. So here this evil personality, Dhenuka, had taken the form of a donkey. He was surrounded by many friends who had assumed similar shapes and were just as powerful as him. He had eaten many people alive, and therefore all people, animals, and even birds were terrified of going into that forest. In the Tal forest were sweet-smelling fruits that no one had ever tasted. Indeed, the boys were saying, "We can even smell their fragrance right now. Oh Krishna, please, let's go. Let's go there and get those fruits. Our minds are so attracted by the aroma. Dear Balaram, our desire to have those fruits is very great. If you think it's a good idea, let's go to the Tal forest." Hearing the words of their dear companions, Krishna and Balaram laughed, and desiring to please them, they set off for the Tal forest surrounded by their friends. Now, I want you to keep in mind this. Not only does he appear as an ordinary person, but he also then shows extraordinary, miraculous powers and abilities. He also shows how he protects his loved ones. And through all of these, there is much to learn. It might sound like some story of a child or whatever else, but there is much more to it than that. Krishna entered the Tala forest along with Balaram, and with their two arms, Balaram began to forcefully shake the trees with the power of a maddened elephant, causing the Tala fruits to fall to the ground. Hearing the sound of the falling fruits, Dhenuka, the demon who had taken the shape of an ass, ran forward to attack, making the earth and trees tremble. The powerful demon rushed to Balaram and sharply struck his chest with the hooves of his hind legs. Then Dhenuka began to run about, braying loudly, moving again towards Balaram. The furious donkey screamed in rage and kicked Balaram again with his hind legs. Balaram then seized Dhenuka by the hoofs, twirled him about with one hand, and threw him on the top of a palm tree. The violent twirling motion killed Dhenuka. Balaram threw the dead body of Dhenuka onto the tallest palm tree in the forest, and when the dead demon landed on the treetop, the tree began shaking. The great palm tree broke under the weight of Dhenuka, and causing nearby trees to also shake and a whole bunch of them to fall down. Then the fact that Balaram killed Dhenuka is not such a wonderful thing. considering that he is the unlimited personality of Godhead. Krishna's brother is no different than Krishna. And he is the controller of the entire universe. Indeed, the entire cosmos rests upon him, just as a woven cloth rests upon its own horizontal and vertical threads. So have you noticed how when things are woven together, a cloth, the threads rest upon each other. And similarly, it gives the analogy here of how the universe rests upon Krishna and Balaram as the supreme beings. The other friends of Dhenuka, the other ass-like demons who were close to Dhenuka, were enraged upon his death and immediately ran to attack Krishna and Balaram. And once again, they were seized one after another by their hind legs and thrown into the tops of the palm trees. The earth appeared beautifully covered with heaps of fruits, while the dead bodies of the donkeys appeared, donkey-shaped demons were entangled in the broken tops of the palm trees. Indeed, the earth shone like the sky decorated with clouds. Hearing of this magnificent feat of the two brothers, the demigods and other elevated beings rained down flowers and offered music and prayers in glorification. Okay, let's take a look at what that looked like. Here is an actual photograph of the Talavan forest. There's a direction going there where Dhenukasura was killed. This is the actual place in Vrindavan. And that's Krishna and Balaram grabbing the hoofs of these ass-like creatures, throwing them up on the trees. Having a blast, having a fun time. All of this was to give pleasure to the devotees. After this incident, people were freely able to return to the forest without fear and enjoy the wonderful fruits of the palm trees. And the cows could also graze freely upon the grass there. Then lotus-eyed Krishna, whose glories are most pious to hear and chant, returned home with his elder brother Balaram. All the way the cowherd boys, his faithful friends, chanted his glories. Krishna's hair was powdered with the dust raised by the cows and was decorated with peacock feather and forest flowers. You'll notice that as a young boy in Vrindavan, he didn't go around wearing a crown. He didn't want to wear any fancy jewels. Just forest flowers, a garland made of forest flowers, and a peacock feather on his head. That was his style statement. He glanced charmingly and smiled beautifully, playing upon his flute as they were walking back home. And the gopis, the cowherd girls and women, came to meet him. Their eager, bee-like eyes of the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Krishna, and by looking at him, all the distress they had felt throughout the day because of separation from him melted and was forgotten. The young girls cast sidelong glances at him, glances filled with shyness and laughter. So there's a whole romance happening between the young girls and the women of Vrindavan and Krishna, and we'll be coming to those scenes as well. But right now we're getting to learn about the male boy friends of Krishna. You see, there are many different kinds of loving relationship enjoyed in Vrindavan. There are many different loving ways in which to love God. And those are known like this. Shantaras is what Shanta is, where it's like an awe and reverence, where you're just in awe of him. Just like you saw pictures of the deer and of the cows and the peacocks looking at Krishna with so much awe and love. Then there is dasya. Dasya means in his desire to serve, like Hanuman did with Ram. And as people want to be able to serve God. And then there is Vatsalya. Vatsalya ras means the love of God as a parent. Not that God is your parent, but you are God's parent. And you're treating him as your own baby. You know how much we love our baby. We love our little child. And we're so in awe of them. So fascinated by every sound they make, every step they take. And it's the same way that Mother Yashoda and many of the older gopis of Vrindavan loved Krishna as their child. And then you have friendships with God, where you have a buddy relationship, a sense of, no formality again, just that he's just so adorable. And they're playing with him and doing fun games and killing demons if need be, and they're climbing on his shoulders and stealing his lunch. And sometimes Krishna's taking the food out of someone's mouth and he's eating it himself. There's no formality. There's only love and pure love. Then there's the girls of Vrindavan, and they're in love with him in their way. So with each person, he has unique relationship. And with each person, he fulfills them the way they want to love him. If you knew of God as someone beautiful, as someone adorable, as someone fun-loving, as joyous, and who wanted to love you, what kind of relationship would you like to have? Would you like to have the relationship of just a little distant in awe? Or would you like to serve? Or would you like to be his parent? Or would you like to be his friend? Or would you like to be his lover? How would you like to love God? Think about it. We all have a relationship. And it's up to us to establish a relationship. Just as when we meet someone, we decide, hey, this person I want to be friends with. Oh, this person, I'm so in love with this person. I want to have a romantic relationship with this person. I just can't get my eyes out of this person. I just need to be with them and be intimate with them. We do this already. And whatever we do here is a reflection of what goes on in the spiritual world. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that this world is like an upside-down tree. And where do you find an upside-down tree? On a riverbank. When there's a tree growing on the riverbank and you see its reflection, that reflection is going to be inverted. So the world is an inverted reflection of the real world, the spiritual world. In this world, everything is upside down. In this world, we want to live forever, but we can't. In this world, we want true love, but we never find it. In this world, we hanker for happiness, but it keeps eluding us. But in the spiritual world, happiness is our very nature. It is who we are as a soul. Even right now, it is who we are. There's no need to look for it. There's no need to be in the pursuit of happiness, because the moment you start pursuing it, it's going to run from you. But when you realize you are it, it is within you, it is who you are, then things change. So when Krishna and Balaram reached home, mothers Yashoda and Rohini was Balaram's mother, Yashoda is Krishna's mother, affectionately came to their sons and offered them all the best things they desired, the boys desired. They bathed and massaged the boys to relieve them of the weariness caused by walking on the country roads. They then dressed them in attractive clothes and decorated them with garlands and fragrances. And after dining sumptuously on delicious food and being pampered in various ways, the two brothers lay down and happily went to sleep in the village of Braj, or Vrindavan. The Supreme Lord Krishna thus wandered about the Vrindavan area, performing his wonderful pastimes. All right, we'll stop here for today. And I'd like to check in with you. There's some of you who have come for the first time. There's some of you who've been here many times. There's folks on Instagram, on YouTube, on Zoom. And if you have some questions, I'd love to hear them. Please write them down. I should be able to read your questions, and I'd love to know what you've been thinking. What have been your thoughts around all this? Does it make sense to you? Ask, feel free. Much of Vedic literature is around questions. If we do not ask questions, we do not learn. Right? One must inquire with a curious mind, with humility, and then one can learn. There is no one who is great out here, no one who is perfect here. We're all in the same boat. We're all trying to understand. We're all seekers on this path. Does anyone have any questions? Not seeing any, though I'm seeing many of you are here. If you had a question, what would it be? Let's try this way. If you had a question, what might it be? If there was something you'd wondered about Krishna, about God, about yourself, about life, anything. Let's give it a few more moments. Just know that we're here every Tuesday in the evenings, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern. Same place. You'll find if you're on YouTube, then it'll be Spiritual Wisdom Academy. If you're on Instagram, you'll find me there. If you're on Zoom, you can join in as well. Through the meetup group, you can join there. We've had lots and lots of very intense philosophical discussions up till now, and now we're coming to the more fun part of it. But if you haven't watched the earlier episodes, then look for them. Go to Spiritual Wisdom Academy on YouTube, and you'll find over there all the earlier episodes. And if you haven't really, if you're really new to all of this, then start with the playlist on the Bhagavad Gita. Just remember one word, Gita, Gita. There'll be a playlist there. And look for it and just watch the entire Gita. I've done one chapter at a time. Start with chapter 2. I think that's the best place to start. And then after that, go to the Bhagavatam, which is what we're doing now. We're almost 85 episodes now that we've been doing there and recording. So love for you to check that out. I have many other things on the YouTube channel. So check it out over there. No questions so far, so I guess we'll wind up for the evening. Wish you all a wonderful evening, and I will see you next week. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri.